Welcome to Living Life. Today we come to a passage dripping in Old Testament imagery, which makes sense given the audience, we think, is primarily Jewish Christians. The author is attempting to make the case for a new and indeed better way of faith. I hesitate to call it a new religion. There is debate over whether the writer's emphasis on Jesus and the new covenant is advocating for a clean break with Judaism. And then there is the idea that religion is not the right word at all to describe what Jesus came to do. Did Jesus come to found a new religion? Indeed, if we take the idea that religion itself could be defined as humanity's creation of something around the divine, then clearly this is not what Jesus was about. Jesus came as a prophet, an invitation, an incarnation of God, preaching and teaching and healing. And so what we see here is the writer speaking of just how powerful and incredible this new work of God is.
Hebrews 12:18-29. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them, because they could not bear what was commanded. If even an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, I am trembling with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him, who warned them on earth, how much less will we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, once more I will shake not only the earth but also the heavens. The words once more indicates the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire.
Our passage today compares the new ways with the old ways in Judaism. In verse 18, we start with a reference to something that can be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest and a voice whose words make the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them. This is clearly a reference to the holy mountain in Deuteronomy 4 and the giving of the Mosaic law. There we read, You approached and stood at the foot of the mountain while the mountain was blazing up to the very heavens, shrouded in dark clouds. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but saw no form. There was only a voice. And Moses trembled with fear, our passage says. Then contrast that description with the new way. You have come to Mount Zion and the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, verse 22 says, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of all. And with these repeated descriptions, the author is trying to make the grand point that the new is better than the old. Rather than a mountain shrouded in smoke and fire and fear, we see the new Mount Zion, and Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, whose blood shuts the door on the need for any more sacrifice. This Jesus is the new, better way, not only for Jewish Christians in the first few centuries, but for all of us, Gentiles, Jews, and people all around the world. Well, this passage is clearly for a Jewish audience. See about applying it to your context. Is Jesus better than your old way? Whether you have Hinduism, Islam, atheism, or no religion, or just religious apathy and indifference in your background, do you think Jesus represents a new and better way to live than what you experienced before? Now, surely people will say, Jesus was really great, and I love his example and how he lived, but I'm not really that keen on all that surrounds him now. The institutional church, the big buildings, priestly and pastoral scandals, political allegiances for the sake of keeping power. All of these threaten Jesus' message and life. People may say, that was an old ancient religion from the Middle East. I am a modern person, and what does this story have to do with me and my life in the 21st century? Jesus was great, but what does he have to do with my technological life in the modern world? Well, those are good questions. I don't want to say it is easy to take on the Christian life as a follower of Jesus in our modern times. In fact, there may be many good reasons to pause before jumping in. But what if it's true? What if, starting in the first century, Jesus came in a Jewish context? And so you have these ancient scriptures that we follow responding to all the questions that arose then. And then in the 5th century, and the 10th century, and the 15th century, all of these followers of Jesus were trying to figure out what to do in their day and time. And now we, in the 21st century, are wrestling with that same question. What does following Jesus mean in our day and time? What if this Jesus really is the key to unlocking life for all days and times? And so I ask, is the Jesus of the New Testament really worthy of our allegiance and following? I think so. And more than I think so, I believe so. Of course, you could say that I'm supposed to say that as a pastor, but I wasn't always a pastor. And I know the many ways that you could live your life outside of the Christian faith, outside of any faith, really. I'm not unaware of the options. And so I come to you not as a triumphalist pastor saying, of course, you knucklehead, it's so obvious that you should follow Jesus. I come to you with the humble observation that, well, I believe this Jesus to be alive and well, a resurrected Lord, ready to call the living and the dead into relationship with him. And so, what might your response to this be? I do believe that Jesus is the answer. I believe Jesus stands at the door and knocks at all of our hearts. It says, please, can I come in? And we have to invite him in. This work of Jesus, this kingdom, our passage says, is something that cannot be shaken. So let us show gratitude and offer God our acceptable worship with reverence and awe. Can we see that following Jesus leads us into new places and is really better than life without him? think you'll find that it is. And that God is calling you to a new mountain, one filled with love and not smoke, one who paid all the cost so that you don't have to, one who is calling you to new life, abundant life, and eternal life. And that is something to